To be fair to Donald Trump, with the black journalists, it was a hard crowd. And to be fair to the journalists, they had a very hard respondent. I think Donald Trump, we have to give him credit for really hitting all of his messaging points to keep people in fear of losing their jobs because of, the immigrants are overrunning the border and taking black jobs, and that they are overrunning the borders, that they're criminals and rapists, that they're killing people. A real exaggeration. And I wish this fact check in real time had been the journalist interrupting him, because people believe that. And I think
Mm.
fear and xenophobia and a fear of white people being overrun by others. He was able to stay on message despite the very tough crowd that he was talking with, and of course the black journalists themselves were scratching their heads, wondering why they had even invited him. So,
Yeah, well,
I don't think
certainly.
it changed anybody's minds either way.
Well, certainly, Congresswoman, we saw things get combative a few times, specifically with Rachel Scott of ABC, who did try to fact check the former president at multiple times throughout the conversation. And it actually did seem that what set the whole thing off was her introductory question, in which she repeated a number of statements around black individuals, black journalists that Donald Trump had made, and asked him essentially why someone considering, a black voter considering whether or not to cast that vote for him in November, should make of that kind of rhetoric. What would you tell a black voter considering whether or not to vote for Donald Trump or instead to choose Kamala Harris?
Well, what the black journalists were trying to demonstrate. Just listen to what he says. And, it has me scratching my heads as to why any black person would vote for him, except for those people who are exceptionally wealthy, or except for those rappers and so on who expect to be pardoned. But it's a curiosity. It's a curiosity why he even accepted the invitation to come. You have to give him credit for showing up for that very tough crowd. But again, I don't think anybody's minds were changed, and I think black voters who saw it probably that increased their resolve to vote for Kamala Harris.
I'm struck by your approach here, Congresswoman. I'm trying to follow what you're saying as closely as I can. I don't know if this is a little bit of reverse psychology, but are you giving Donald Trump credit for having continuity in being racist?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he sounded like a true believer that Mexicans and other people, criminals, were overrunning the border and taking black jobs. I doubt that they were taking any of the black journalists' jobs that were sitting in that room. But he did have a huge platform for scaring other black people who may be marginalized and inappropriately blame people who crossed the border. I mean, he had message discipline. He never got off of his big hits. Uh, uh,
Hmm.
he even when he said that Kamala, he didn't realize she was black until recently. She was pretending to not be black. Even then, he was sort of appealing to some segment of the black community who may not feel like she's black enough, even though she went to Howard University, had a black father. She
Mm-hmm.
joined the first black sorority installed in the United States. People, some black people who might have some very nationalistic views about what a black person ought to look like and be like and sound like. So he's stuck with the grievance message. He's stuck with the others message. He's stuck with the victimhood message. And that, unfortunately, has appeal to some people. I do think he was talking to his supporters. His supporters might have been gleeful about him pushing back against these black women and talking over them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they were very pleased with his performance.